Hello, hello. Let's see how it is working. I'm using a new tool today, so I hope it works. Okay. It seems it is working, so it is my pleasure today to be with you. We are doing Ask Me Anything. Very first initial idea to see how it will work and just to practice using the new tool, because I'm using a new tool for streaming. So that's a very good occasion also. And because of having more than 10,000 followers, I thought, okay, on Twitter, I thought, okay, that may be a good idea just to do something live. So hello Murtada. I'm not sure if I'm spelling your name correctly. I don't expect thousands of people being today with me, because this is the very first initial video on my channel. In the end, I'm just having this big plan to have more visibility on YouTube. So we will see how it will work. That's the very first step, to start with something. And I thought maybe having Q&A will be just good enough. So if you are online, you have a great opportunity to ask me anything, like topics related to the programming, .NET, productivity, maybe even building personal brand, or being on social media, or writing book, whatever. We will see, because I have some plans what in the end this channel will be about, and it will be about all the nerdy stuff that is related somehow with programming and being self-employed guy who is just into programming. So it will evolve for sure. Today we have some very initial first video. I see that this platform that I'm using works pretty well, so for now I'm satisfied. And just let's proceed with some questions, because I gathered some questions before, because for sure not everyone can be on every webinar on the planet. So even if they were people that said, I would like to be on your channel, on your live, but I can't, I won't be able to do that. So we have some questions prepared, but if you are online, you can always ask also. So without further ado, let's just proceed, because this is for why we are today, for asking and answering questions. So first of all, I need to find out how I can find those questions to display them. So, okay, very first question. I like it a lot. And by the way, most of those questions are so interesting that probably I will write, maybe I will record a separate video about every of it, because it is so big topic. Like, for example, what are your productivity tools? This is so big that I can't answer shortly to give you full picture, but in general, for sure, I can answer in short, giving some general overview. How do I perceive productivity tools? So, hello, nfactor 26, nice nick. Just sometimes I will be trying to do something in the platform itself, so sorry for some pauses, but okay, we have the very first question, and I thought, okay, to make it a little bit kind of note-taking, I will be answering with the help of the mind map. So the very first question is productivity tools. Okay, writing and productivity tools. And what are those? First of all, I would say that in the end, I love topic of productivity, so I used a lot of various tools, and I could talk about various possible tools. But what comes to my mind when trying to make an answer like what are the top most popular for me is for sure any kind of time boxing. So I would say that's the most important thing from my perspective, to have full to have this perception of control of my time and how it passes. And because of that, for example, I love Pomodoro technique. I'm not sure if it is written by, probably with a single. Pomodoro technique is a very simple technique. It is just 25 minutes blocks of work. So you are splitting your work for every 25 minutes, then you take 5-minute break, and then every time it repeats. After a few 25-minute blocks, you can take bigger pause, bigger break, like 15-20 minutes. In general, the whole day passes. And when I'm doing something, I'm thinking in terms of pomodoros. So if I'm starting some task, I know that I'm now dedicating this one pomodoro for this particular task. It barely happens that then the task is so short that I'm not consuming the whole pomodoro, but it may happen that okay, after 10 minutes I have done so, then probably I will just stop this pomodoro and switch to another one. There is no need for making artificial 25 minutes long pomodoros just for the sake of this technique. But in general, this time boxing is, I believe, super important, because it gives you this better control what you are in the end doing. And if you know that you are now doing this single pomodoro, which is, for example, writing emails, and if you are self-strong enough and self-motivated enough, you will be really doing those emails for those 25 minutes. And you won't go to Facebook, Twitter, or start to watch some Netflix movie, because you know, okay, I now have the Pomodoro for writing emails. And if you will just, float around the internet, you will know that you waste this Pomodoro. So that's super, super important outcome from this, that you really start to work like you will have better control and do not waste your time just for doing things that you are not even aware that you are wasting your time, because your mind is just floating and you are not even aware of the fact that you have stopped doing something. If you have a Pomodoro, you see this timer ticking, you know that this is this 25 minutes for it, and that's all. Even now I'm using Pomodoro, I'm using Toggle Track tool for doing that, and I have a Pomodoro for doing this live. So then I know that, okay, maybe in this case, obviously, this is not so important, because I can't imagine that being live, I will start to play games or watch Netflix, but still, it has a super important second thing. So it has, first of all, it gives you attention, and you are just focus, well, let's say. So you are focusing on the work, on this particular task. Moreover, in the end, it has nice outcome of reporting. So in the end, will be just able to take a look at the whole week, for example, or whole day. If you are really measuring it and you don't cheat, you will know how long you were working on particular tasks. And this is also super, super nice thing. And in these terms, I would say any way of time boxing is important, but for me, this simple idea of Pomodoro just works. And this tool which I'm using supports Pomodoro. So after 25 minutes, it will say, okay, your Pomodoro has stopped. And then you have a 5-minute break automatically countdown. And then the new Pomodoro should start, and there will be a pop-up to select the new task, which is nice support from the tool itself. Second thing I would say is just to have a goal, and plan. Maybe this is a trivial thing, but I'm seeing myself really problematic to focus on something if I don't know really what I'm doing and what I want to achieve. If I have too many tasks, for example, at hand, then I will start to jump over one to another and nothing progress because I'm just overwhelmed with those amount of work and I don't know where to start, what is important, what not. So having a plan and the goal is super important. So here I will be using any kind of calendar, but not only, but also, let's say, any to-do lists, and also maybe even bigger strategic plan. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to do in this month, in this year? This is super important. I would say that really deserves a few videos to cover it, how I like to do that and what I believe it is important, how you can make use of this and how you should start making plans and goals, because without that you will not be controlling yourself. Like you will be floating in random directions. And this is even connected. So if you have a to-do list, if you have a strategic plan, then you will know that thanks to the thanks to the Pomodoro, you will be simply knowing whether you are in a good direction or not, because simply you will be seeing, okay, I dedicated 5 hours to something that is not aligned with my plan because I was interrupted with some side note, maybe some additional, additional work, additional job. Maybe someone interrupted me with an email and I was nerd sniped, so I start to read things. If I'm really, let's say, sincere with myself, I will report that in the Pomodoro, and in the end, at the end of the week, I will see something went wrong because I was dedicated to have, for example, 6 hours per week for some project, and I have only 2. So I can start to think when those other 4 hours went. So that's super important, and I believe for now it is just those two are definitely my most important productivity tools and techniques. If you have any more questions regarding that, do not hesitate to ask. Okay, I see also the question on chat, so let's jump over to chat now. Murtada, what can you suggest for new programmer to be comfortable with to learn your stuff? I'm not sure what you mean by learning my stuff. If you are talking about stuff that I'm doing, we must admit, me, myself, and also as .NET as company, we are providing more stuff for, let's say, more advanced programmers. Assuming, for example, that you already know C#, so then you will benefit. If you don't know C#, we don't have anything that we can start to learn C# or teach C# or something. So to be comfortable with my stuff, if I understand your question, probably you should be simply comfortable with .NET in the end. So if you know .NET a little, at least a little, you know tools like Visual Studio, you know C# a little, you know ASP.NET Core a little, then you can start to benefit from what we have already done and what we provide, and also what I'm providing on my blog or on Twitter, because I'm a little bit biased to the more advanced stuff. But this maybe will be slowly changing, because I also thought that this channel may be a nice opportunity to provide those basic things. And for example, when I will be doing things like game dev, then I will be starting from basics. So we will see how this channel will evolve. I will be for sure targeting a little bit more basic stuff too. Also for people that, for example, are starting programming or so, if there will be such demand, I would like to do that. I'm not sure, Murtada, if I have answered your question, but if not, do not hesitate to elaborate. Okay, let's jump to the next question, which is somewhere here. I'm still a little bit lost in this new user interface. Okay, the next question is how and what, why it is not showed. Okay, I need to disable this. So then I can show this. Okay, not so per intuitive, but let's say it's good enough. So the next question is, how do you learn new things? Learning, that's a great, another super great question. Like, it deserves series of webinars about learning itself. What I can say for now is that I changed a little the way what I am learning, because I was 4 years book guy, so I was learning from books. I really love books. And I can say I still love books, but not all the topics are super nice now. And I am seeing myself a little mindset change, that I also start to learn a lot from online content. So, for example, from various online trainings, I would say. Online trainings, typically paid ones, but not only, because there is a lot of online content like YouTube or conferences and so on. So I would say a few years ago, when I wanted to learn something, I was always starting from book. When I wanted to learn, I would say about economy, for sure I will take a book. If I wanted to learn a new programming language, for sure I would start from a book about this language. But currently, even now, I'm learning new things, like, for example, game programming or other stuff. And I started to like online content a lot. It is, I'm not even sure why, because I still love books, but still this kind of interactivity, seeing things live, someone is programming, someone is live coding, we see the immediate result, we have some exercises to make, or just to observe some demos. This gives a lot of value in the end. So online trainings becomes much more important, and I believe this is a trend that we are seeing currently. So I would say this is where I'm learning. Those free sources mostly currently are about that. But then there is a huge topic, how, and this will be a lot bigger topic, which I'm afraid even starting now, because I love this topic even more than productivity. And there is a lot of science even behind how you can learn. So I will be just doing, for sure, some additional webinars. But I would say the most high level techniques that I would put here is variety. So change. So just change the ways how you are learning, not learn from a single source, from a single form. Change forms, start a book, but also do some online training, but also, let's say, practice, rephrase what you have learned, and make rehearsals, make some exams, just make a lot of connections from various points, and from various perspectives. The worst thing you can make is probably just to use only one source, one form, like for example, learning from a book and then putting it on the bookshelf, and that's all, because you will forget it for sure in a very fastly. So then you need to connect another dots and practice it and look at it from different perspective. I lot also teaching. One of the most important techniques that I'm using to learn something is to teach, because there is no better way to structure what you have learned, to rephrase what you have learned, to really try to understand things, and also rehearsal of all your knowledge if you want to teach someone else. That's super nice. Even if if it is myself that I will be learned in the end, I can make kind of self classes to myself, trying to explain to myself loudly and try to phrase what I have learned. That's really beneficial. But in the end, typically here will be a blog or YouTube or anything else you can talk, and various user groups. And this is also super big motivational boost. Like if you will know that you will write a blog post about something, you will really be careful not to write something stupid. So then immediately the quality of what you are doing will increase. And maybe that is enough for a moment. I'm seeing some questions, so let's just come back to the chat and let's see the question from James. So James, hello, James, nice to see you. Do you think the web guys will ever take Blazor seriously? So that's good question. So let's say questions from IT, Blazor or not. The question is, it depends, as always, because I don't think that web front-end guys will ever take over Blazor over anything like Angular or React. So React, Angular, or anything else, rather not, because it is so huge ecosystem already that I don't really believe someone will just skip it and make it or prefer it over something so new, so not well established like Blazor. But if you are a full stack .NET developer, I would say we will see, because it promises something that may really happen. Like I'm also doing 2 projects currently in Blazor, and I really love this approach that I don't need to stick with JavaScript, and I don't need to learn React or Angular or anything else, because I have all the front-end technology at hand also written in C#. That's super awesome possibility. But still, I would say the main risk is here. Obviously, we could do kind of SWOT analysis. So, what are the strong, weak sides of it? What are the opportunities and threats? So we should do that, and probably we will maybe someday. Analysis. I would say currently the main threat is that Blazor is a lot of hype now, but in a few years Microsoft will say, okay, but that's not so important. We have seen that with Windows Mobile, Windows Phone. Now we are seeing this with the augmented reality. And that's the main risk. Like .NET will be for years with us for sure, but still, whether it is true for Blazor or not, we don't know. So there is a lot of potential. There are some obviously risks. Like there are some weaknesses, like it is still big and in some cases not so fast. There are some really strong points, like it is this full stack possibility for every .NET programmer. And I really don't know. Like I'm doing 2 projects in Blazor because I'm seeing a lot of advantages, but I'm not dedicated my career to Blazor. It's simply something that is good to know, and if you will know it, it won't hurt you. But at the moment I would not leave anything and just concentrate on Blazor in 100%, just because we are not sure what it will be in the end from the Microsoft, what will be the final move from the Microsoft itself. Okay, Blazor done. The next question from Sergey. Nice to meet you, Sergey. What do you prefer working on, web, desktop, game dev? Do you still create applications, or you are more into teaching now? So that's, let's say, personal things and preferences. I would say that 90% of my current work is consult and train, and maybe 20, maybe 80, sorry. Consults and trainings maybe will be better, because this is how it looks like. I'm co-founder of .NETos. I'm doing my own consultancies and also trainings. So for 2-3 years it's like that. Most of the rest is just some kind of pet projects. I'm not doing any regular everyday programming for any company, although they are sometimes pretty long consultancies. So I was doing, for example, a Unity consultancy. I'm doing other consultancies. When sometimes I write something, sometimes I just suggest doing something. So I would say it is still consulting more. And because of the clients currently, it is web. I would say mostly web development. Sometimes desktop, but really, really rarely. But it happens. And for pet projects, it's the same, with this difference that I rather not make. Oh no, I'm having one pet project on desktop and game dev. Like here, I have this opportunity to make it, and I have this possibility to make a game, for example. So that's one of my big projects for now. One to make a game, and it will be a pet project that sometimes maybe in the end will end as also consultancy and trainings. We will see. So the answer is like mixed one. I'm doing all of this stuff. Mostly I'm doing consultancy, but I also do create applications for pet projects, and also sometimes for consultancy. Maybe that's the short answer, and that's enough. The next one. On topic of learning, I would also like to understand, how do you retain what you have learned? For example, I read a lot of things, but I forget them very quickly. Yes, that's super important part of the how. So in the end, how to not forget. How to not forget what we have learned. And that's one of the most important parts of the learning itself. I would say there are several techniques, but in the end, it is just repeat. So there are various techniques that you can that make allow you to not forget. So, for example, you are making notes, and then you are just returning to them regularly, and you are practicing something. So then you have better muscle memory instead of just reading about something. And I would just say that also make kind of practice note taking and returning to those notes, and again teaching. But I would say if you are teaching, you need to repeat, you need to recall something, because then you will be teaching about it. So doing something simply is a way of not forgetting. And I fully understand you, because I have exactly the same problem. Like, I'm reading some book and I'm super, let's say, in love with this book, and I'm full of knowledge from this book, and after 2 years I even don't remember that I have read this book, which is a pity, but this is how our brain is working. And for that, the most important thing is definitely note taking. Like, when I'm reading a book, I have tried various techniques, but currently I'm just highlighting important things. After that, or during reading, I'm taking notes, typically in the form of mind map, like here. And then I have this mind map, and I have thousands of mind maps, and every day I try to dedicate some time to open one of the mind maps that I have done. And that's great, because in a few minutes I can have a very short overview of some topic that I was reading about even a few years ago. That's my goal, because unfortunately not every book is already covered by me in such form. So I have a lot of gap here, and then that's a pity. Then I forget about what I have read in a book. But if I have a notes like that, repeating and returning to something is much faster, because I don't need to reread the whole book. If I will be looking at such notes regularly, I will be simply having this in my mind, because I will have this memory footprint in my mind, and I will be, okay, that was this, that was that, and all the dots will be immediately connected with my in my head. So note taking, that I would say super important, and moreover, not only note taking, but I can delete it. But just to make it more not taking, insert, call out, returning to those to those notes is super important. If you will be taking notes and regularly return to them in one or another way, that's the main thing I'm trying to do to overcome that problem. Okay, let's proceed. I hope I answered a little. Code Wrinkles. Hello, totally agree with that. I agree with your agree. Next question. Which book do you suggest as an entry to your .NET memory management book? Memory management, memory management book is a little different, because it was written in mind to have a very low entry level. So if only you know C#, it will be just fine, because I'm explaining there a lot of things from very basics. So if only you know what class is and struct is, and even I'm explaining this in few sentences there, that would be totally fine. So I was trying to design this book in a way that everyone can start, if only you know about C#, if you have done anything in C#. if you are programming in C#. No specific knowledge is needed. In that particular topic, I'm just covering all from super basics to the most advanced topics, all that are related to .NET memory management. So I cannot suggest an entry to my book because I believe it is an entry itself. Okay, next question. Arvind, nice to meet you. Can we expect more videos related to advanced .NET topics in your channel? No. No, because those topics will be on the .NET channel. So advanced .NET stuff will be at .NET channel because this is what it is about. .NET is all about giving you expertise, knowledge about .NET. So it doesn't make sense to split and have the same content on my channel and .NET channel. My channel will be about .NET, but mostly about programming in general. So you can expect comparisons between various languages, introduction to Rust maybe, or comparing Go with Java or whatever. Just if something is really about .NET, it will be on .NET's channel, with the exception for game dev, because game dev is about Unity. In my case, it will be mostly about Unity, which is .NET related. We are writing there in C#, but .NETOS is not about game dev. So this is an opposite thing. Like, it doesn't make sense to pollute .NETOS channel with the game dev knowledge, because .NETOS is not about game dev. So if it will be something advanced, it will be in the context of game dev. Maybe it will be advanced stuff, but still in the context of game dev. I'm doing few personal projects in Blazor as well. Don't see any push for Blazor at work. However, that's true. I'm not super aware of any. If there is a lot of job offers for Blazor, they may be some, but still I believe this is a tremendously smaller number than anything else, like ASP.NET in case of .NET, or full stack programming. That's a niche, which as always gives you some opportunities. Like you can be an early adopter if you are aware of this. If you're aware of this super popular let's just find me this drawing. Adoption innovation curve. So this is a super popular thing, like always. So adoption innovation curve is, as always, you can be here. Like with Blazors, we are somewhere here in the early adopter phase. So you can try to benefit from that. And if there will be a company that will be starting a project in Blazor, you will come out and you will say, hey, I'm a Blazor expert. So now you can just hire me for a lot of money because I'm the one is an early adopter and can help you with introducing Blazor. But the risk with early adopters is, as always, that it may end as not adopted. Like as we have elaborated previously, it may end up in the situation that no one will adopt Blazor and your knowledge will be not relevant. So do your own risk, as it is said. Okay, let me just scroll through questions. Okay, the next one. Now new .NET and C# versions comes every year. Is there something you would like to have in C# .NET that exists in other languages and platforms? That's super nice question. So what I would like to have in .NET that is not there and exists in different platforms. Let's call it .NET Wishes. There is a super nice. There are for sure always some improvements that are available and not yet implemented in .NET. For example, from my personal beloved topic, I would like to see eventually compacting concurrent PC, like the ones that are available in Java, for example, are not yet available in .NET 6, probably still won't be available in .NET 7, so a lot of work. We are going into that direction, but still we are not there. So, for example, this is something that eventually will happen, but it is not available still. Another thing that I maybe would like to see is implementation of green threads, which is another topic of having kind of threads that are not native threads but are just scheduled by the runtime itself, which gives a lot of opportunities or drawbacks, but they are runtimes supporting them. There were some experiments about them years ago, as far as I know. They are not implemented. Maybe .NET team will return to them in next years. We will see. And I would like to see super nice new language, because C# has become super complex. Like I like C# still a lot, but sometimes I even personally lost in all those possibilities and how you can now express, for example, pattern matching, or even anything can be expressed in super multiple ways. So having any kind of a new refreshment in that manner would be nice, although I don't have any idea what this language could have inside. But sometimes I'm probably simply missing a little bit of simplicity of the first C# languages. And by the way, find it, .NET, where it is. If you would like to see what is the current .NET team working about a little, there is a nice site which is called .next. Don't confuse it with the name of popular conference, but there is a .next site which is a little bit of experimental various APIs that are experimental. So .NET team is working on them, trying to extend the possible APIs with something that may be possible in futures. So you can look around, because this is a kind of a, sneak peek what in the future may be added to .NET itself. Not maybe on the runtime level, but on the API level. So I would say I would like to see all this stuff implemented simply. So that's something that I can share also on chat, so you can also look around later on. Okay, let's just scroll through the next questions. Agreeing to the fact that the best way to learn is to teach. Agreed, totally agreed. Also, having feedback is nice. If you were to add a second language to your toolkit other than C#, that will it be second language? That's tricky question. If we are talking about .NET ecosystem, there is no such a language. I was making few attempts to F#. I understand the F# concept. I understand functional programming. I don't feel like learning F# a lot, because that's probably I don't feel it as for now. So putting aside F#, I don't have a lot of other possibilities in .NET. But what I have learned recently is Rust. And because I'm into performance and low-level programming, Rust is very nice language that can extend your, let's say, boundaries of understanding how the nowadays low-level programming may look, which I really like. Also, I have this feeling that eventually I would like to skim through various exotic languages because there are various developments and topics that are really interested in the programming language, programming language science in general. So that's one of my ideas for the upcoming series on this channel, to look at various, even very exotic languages, to understand what they are adding, what they are giving in return, what are the advantages, why they are implemented like that. So most of them won't be on .NET platform, but still they are some very nice. And we can learn a lot, even if we are not using those languages in everyday programming. We can still, obviously, learn some technique or approach to something. So that's one of my goals. Speaking of goals, here in the productivity, one of my strategic plan for this channel also is have this opportunity to look at those languages, because I have an excuse. I will be making YouTube videos about them. So then I will need to, let's say, teach about them a little. So then a great way of learning about them. Okay. The next, Alexander, nice to see that you have seen me. Next time, come to me, talk with me. I love talking on conferences. Unfortunately, it is pretty often people are, I would say, too busy to come over and to just say hello. So every time, next time you will be seeing me, just come and say hi. That would be awesome. So you like Rust? Yes, I like Rust. I have a book about Rust, which is this approach of book-based learning. This is even on my desk because I'm sometimes referring to it. Currently, the one that is translated to Polish, but it is this general free available Rust programming book, which is called The Rust Programming Language. Very good name, from the author of the Rust itself, or at least from the chief of the Rust documentation team, which is very nice. Like I like this book. It was always a few steps behind me. So when I was reading about something and wanted to understand how it is working, answer to it was few pages later. So I really like this feeling that the book is really covering what I would like to know. So it is not trivial book, and I recommend it, but still it is only a book. So then I also started a pet project, which was something written in Rust, just to have an opportunity to practice, because the saddest thing that you can have about the book of a given language is just to read a book about a given language and then have a feeling that you have understood everything, but without practicing and trying to write anything in this language, it would be a miserable failure. So another pet project is in Rust in my case, although this is a super exotic thing and I don't dedicate a lot of time to it because I need to shave my projects. I don't have time for covering everything I would like to have. Okay, please can you suggest roadmaps into out to access the level that could create own tools that may solve limitations in fields related to GC? Unfortunately, I'm afraid I don't understand this question, Murtada. So if you could rephrase it, I would be thankful. and having time while you are rephrasing. Mm, let's come back to some questions that were asked before the before the call, before the live. So the next one was the continuation about learning. So do you read books once or several times? I have answered. I'm almost maybe partially, but I typically read a book only once because because if I'm taking notes, then I'm returning to notes, not to the book itself. There are really, really few books that I have read twice or more. Typically, they are not technical books. Like there is I would say one of the most nice books that I have ever read is the Ray Dalio, which is a Polish translation, but it is the book which is called in original. It is called simply Principles. I would say Principles from Ray Dalio is one of the most important books that every should read, and it really will change how you will work, think, and live simply. So definitely, I such books which are kind of motivational, philosophical, life hacking tool books. Maybe I will return to some of them, but typically I'm just giving a book one shot and then I return to notes simply. So I also answer the next question. Yes, I do take notes because I believe they are the most important ways of taking advantage of a book. Without them, I don't recall what was in a book after a year or two for sure. And if we are talking about programming books and if there are any examples or exercises, I must admit I haven't done any exercise from any programming book ever. That's a pity, but I don't like those exercises simply. Typically what I do is I'm doing my own things, like if I'm learning Rust or JavaScript or TypeScript, I will be doing my own project, doing my own experiments, looking for answers on Stack Overflow or so. I simply don't like those artificial examples and exercises from books. I'm not doing them. That's my personal preference, I believe. What's my preferred tooling for profiling debugging? Did you write your own profiling tools? I like profiling tools for sure. So writing profiling tools is a nice exercise and very nice pet project, but it is really hard to write a profiling tool that will be really reliable enough to use it in production or make any significant, meaningful findings from it and measurements. So while I did write some profiling tools, at least started to, and make some experiments and play to, let's say, fun, small tools, typically I'm using the full-blown commercial or just open source tools. And from this perspective, for sure, I would say filing debugging tools. The most important is always Purview, which is just the super nice .NET driven and for .NET, prepared for .NET, a tool for, I would say, both profiling and a little bit of debugging, diagnosing, recording sessions, and so on. And then probably the next one will be simply Visual Studio, because still it gives us this diagnostic hub, obviously super nice debugger. So Visual Studio. And I'm a little bit hesitating here whether I should talk about commercial tools, but okay, let's say that I'm also I like using JetBrains tools like .memory and .trace, because I just found it really useful in various scenarios. So when talking about any kind of consultancy, analysis, profiling, debugging, those will be my main ones. Sometimes I'm also referring back to WinDBG. There are some scenarios when fortunately or not, I need to do that, which is sometimes problematic because it is a lot of pain sometimes to use this tool, but still there are some scenarios when it makes sense. So WinDBG still, it is a like edge case, so I would say maybe 10% of cases requires that, but still it happens. Okay. I promised myself just to make this no longer than 1 hour, so we'll be slowly landing with the questions, but let's try to answer a few more. What's your preferred tooling? Sorry, that was already. Where do you live now? In Warsaw, so in Poland, center of of Poland. It is a capital of Poland. And for sure, obviously, I know where Belarus is because we are our neighbor. So I was even visiting your country 2 years ago. I was in Minsk because there was this .fest, or I don't recall the name now, but it was the .NET conference in Minsk. So I have visited your capital too. And I hope I will be visiting it even more in future after this COVID madness will end. So definitely I know where the Białoruś, as we are calling here in Poland. I hope we will meet somewhere in one of the next conferences that will happen eventually. Okay. Let me just go through the questions. I haven't answered all the questions that was asked, but I believe most of them were covered. There was one about favorite games, because as I was saying about it a little, this channel will be mostly, or at least significantly, dedicated to development of games, which is commonly simply called and named as game dev. And game dev is inherently related to gaming. So I also play games, and I even perceive it as important because it is a kind of inspiration, and you can look what are the other amazing teams doing when making a game. Obviously, I will be super solo indie game developer with the budget at the level of few dollars, so it will be super indie game programming. But still, I believe it may be a lot of fun, and I perceive it is even as a I perceive it as a very nice way of and possibilities for pet projects for all .NET developers. Like, we are all into web development, in developing all those business applications, designing domains and APIs. This is all awesome, but sometimes having a little bit different point would be nice, and I believe game dev may be such a nice opportunity to have a hobby pet, let's say, way of spending time, which is still .NET and programming related, but in a totally different area. And currently, you don't need to be an artist to make a game. If you are not doing a AAA game, you can use a lot of available assets. Many of them even are free. So I believe this may be a lot of fun. That's why I started, and I have this idea of this channel. Moreover, favorite games are maybe I will be doing some reviews of games because, as I said, gaming and game dev, they are so close to each other. And my favorite game currently is still No Man's Sky because I believe I like open sandbox games like that and traveling from planet to planet. And I'm old enough to remember games like Frontier or Elite. And now having No Man's Sky is just mind blowing. How advanced this game is, how much possibilities you have there, and simply how nice graphics is. So No Man's Sky is one of those that I really love currently, and I'm returning to this game sometimes. But I also like a lot of indie games, short, small games that are just for a few minutes, 15 minutes of playing. You don't stick to such games so much because they are not games for hours and you don't care. Simply they are for relaxing, to relax simply and spend some time with a nice entertainment. So the top one is this one, and there are a lot of others. And I currently my Steam library is like we will see. My Steam library is having it is over 100 games, so a lot of possibilities for reviews. Like I don't play games so much, so I don't have enough time, unfortunately or fortunately, to make to spend a lot of time for playing games, but still I'm trying some games from time to time. I like it even for the aesthetic point of view, to see how the current graphics looks like. One of the biggest games that I recently bought is Death Stranding. That's the masterpiece of the gaming, I would say. That was been published 2 years ago, but still super nice. And just expect some reviews in future, probably. Okay, slowly ending because I believe it is 1 hour and that's super good moment to end. So are you a master in Unity Engine? And absolutely not. I'm a beginner at Unity Engine. So a lot of learning and making tutorials, understanding all the stuff. What I'm seeing in this context is that a lot of tutorials is for people that are not only starting game dev, but also are starting programming in general. So I'm a little bit confused or even sometimes annoyed that I'm again learning from a tutorial that is explaining what is a variable, or that you have a class and class has a method. I don't, it is just waste of time. So what I will be targeting in my channel is to target people similar to me, like people that are developing for years, and we have totally full understanding of various architectures of object-oriented programming, of C#, and we are just proficient users of, in the end, any IDE and computer and programming in general, and we don't want to waste time listening once more what is available. Sorry. And that you have a conditional expressions and so on and so on. So this will be something from this different perspective for guys like me that are knowing C# and .NET, but now want to skip or experiment simply with game dev and with Unity in particular. So I'm not a master in Unity, but I am a master in programming, and this gives a little different perspective and context, I believe, because even if you will learn about Unity and how you use the Unity, and about components and how they relate to objects and so on, then you can simply understand entity component system, map those knowledge to object-oriented programming and why it is relevant, and so on and so on. And this is from totally different level if you are starting with all this knowledge instead of just learning programming at the same time. So expect a lot of topics about game dev in Unity like that. I hope you will like it. That's something new because I'm completely not known from this site. My whole Twitter and .NET activities about .NET and programming, but not about game dev. So here we are. The experiment is and has started. We will make games in Unity using C#, and we will see how it will end. Okay, that's, I believe, all. Let's just give you very last minute for you to give any to ask any more questions. I will think about the form of all this because it needs to be dynamic for sure. I'm not even sure how it will look like. All this is super all new to me too. I'm learning also YouTube. We will see. If you like it, just as all YouTubers are saying, give a like to this video, subscribe this channel, and wait for the upcoming content. Maybe you also will find game dev interesting and in general programming from various perspectives, not only from the .NET related perspective. The very last thing is this question in the context of let's say programming. I'm definitely trying to broaden my activities. So I love programming and I will be programming forever. But I'm also having a company like .NETOS is a company. We are hiring people. We are just full dedicated for providing content. This is just a regular company that I would love to develop. So this is one of the activities that is far beyond programming, because it is like having a company and all about entrepreneurship and planning and invoicing and economy and other stuff, like having a business simply. And this is a direction that I'm also taking, like making more broad business related activities, making software that maybe will be sold as a service, various activities that are far beyond programming, but still related to programming. I will not start to sell cars or farm potatoes. All activities that I'm planning is related to programming, but from broader perspectives too. I have currently 3 big projects on the table, when game development is one of them. Other 2 are I will think about them, how and where they should be announced, but still I have much more plans than just making software. We will see. We will see how it will end. So let's just make a super fast look over the chat, whether we have something to ask. Waiting next meeting. Me too. I probably will plan to have a 2 weeks based schedule. We will see how it will end and whether I will be able to do that or not. Okay. Super last questions. Which digital device you prefer to read your programming books? None. Like I'm spending so much time in front of computer that when I'm reading a book, it is always a physical book, because I'm just too tired of pixels and electronic devices. So if it is a book, it is just a physical book with paper, and I can read it everywhere, and my eyes also can relax a little. So I don't read books electronically at all. I was having such attempts without any success. I was trying to read it on tablets, on monitor, on ebook readers. Still, I simply prefer paper. Maybe I'm old school, but that's something that I still prefer. Okay, thank you. Then there is a mind map that we have created with all the answers, covering those topics really only a little, because they are really big topics. So expect episodes about learning, about productivity, about languages, programming languages, and various programming topics, and also expect more about game dev. That's one of the goals. So thank you for being with me today, and we will see how it will end all and how it will just continue. As I said, that is super new thing for me. So having you online is very nice for me, that I was not talking to myself, that you were there and you were asking questions. I'm really grateful for being with you today. So thank you very much. I hope you will be also on next webinars, and see you. Thank you. Bye.